EMJ red pilled me on AIDS. Yeah, COVID-19 is AIDS for heterosexuals. It's fascinating. Okay, so I'll explain. Alyssa Milano hospitalized due to long hauler symptoms of COVID-19. All right. That's great. Yeah. So the thing about COVID-19 that I've noticed is everybody's symptoms are completely different. Like hers is she's losing her hair. It's all the same sign. It's the signs of menopause, Alyssa. So, some people can't feel their toes. Some people are having horrible breathing problems. Some people are all kinds of stuff. It's full range. There's no, and then it dawned on me that that's the same thing that happened with AIDS. So in America, the symptoms of AIDS were autoimmune shutdown, lesions, being very susceptible to any illness. Skin lesions was a big one, all this stuff. In Africa, in South Africa, when AIDS hit Africa, the symptoms were completely different. It would be diarrhea, all this stuff. Not even close. No skin lesions, no autoimmune. It was about losing a lot of liquid through diarrhea, all this stuff. So it dawned on me that, EMJ talks a lot about the AIDS spell, where what really killed a lot of homosexuals in America was they would take these amyl nitrates and go out in these bathhouses and they would pump themselves silly and it would dismantle their immune systems. And they would be sickly. And then the AZT, the cure, is what killed a lot of them. And so then in South Africa, they had a problem with minors. All these minors kept getting sick. And so they had already branded, and this is going to shock people. And if you have a problem, that's fine. You can go to the Daily Wire, go watch Ben Shapiro. It's fine. This is a place for certain people. And if it bothers you, just leave. So in South Africa, they already had this great brand, this great spell that they had just spent all this time on in America that was perpetuated by shame, called AIDS, HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. It's total nonsense. All the false positives that you're seeing now, all the bullshit, how did Magic Johnson beat AIDS? He just didn't take AZT. So when you are committing all the, and where did AIDS go? Where's the cure for AIDS? Where's the vaccine for AIDS? Just really stop and think. In South Africa, they said breastfeeding transmitted HIV, right? And the Grabbler also said you're more likely to get AIDS if you're not circumcised. I used to believe that when I was a kid. I used to want to be circumcised for a little while because they said, because I'm not circumcised because my parents love me. So a lot of anti-Semitism in the family. So I was like, oh no, I can't have sex because I'll get AIDS because I have an unclipped penis. So the Grabbler said that if you have an open wound on your penis and you cut it, you have a less likely chance of getting AIDS. And from heterosexual sex, you had a 9 in 1,000 chance. I used to be so paranoid about AIDS when I was a kid. Paranoid. And then when you look at the stats, guys, Dr. Fauci was in charge of the AIDS thing too. It's fascinating. So AZT was a drug so strong and so horrifying that they wouldn't even give it to cancer patients because it was destroying their immune system. It would cause full autoimmune meltdown. And so the whole thing was perpetrated by self-hatred. And we're now seeing this in the heterosexual community. I'll explain. So back in the 80s, you had all these homosexual bathhouses and all this stuff after the 60s with the increase in sexual liberation. Dionysian age is upon us. And the gays hated him at the time. Yeah, because he was just killing all of them. And so they were destroying their immune system. They'd be up, some of my parents' really close friends were these San Francisco sodomite types. This one guy, Jim, who's still around, he used to smoke meth, and he was a professor. He used to smoke meth and go into bathhouses, just taking 10 guys at a time. And he would always say, I can't believe I didn't die of AIDS, flaming. And so that self-destructive behavior was huge in the 70s and 80s. And so what they started doing is they started getting sick. When you live a lifestyle like that, you get sick very, very easily. You destroy your internals. And HIV virus is what I believe viruses to be, are your body makes them in response to trauma, disease, illness, all this shit. And so all these homosexuals were dying because of their horrifying lifestyles and drug use, the amyl nitrates, all this stuff. And so they sought for a cure, and that cure was AZT. AZT right now is one of the most toxic things you can put in your body. And so as these homosexuals were reaching for the AZT to cure them of their illness that was caused by their lifestyle, they got even more sick and they would die. And so South Africa, there was this great brand that existed, AIDS. So all these miners were coming down with the same, they were all coming down with the same illness that was caused from the toxic chemicals in the mine. So the mining company was on the hook for trillions of dollars in lawsuits. Fortunately for them, they just had this new spell. So they just said it was AIDS, even though none of the symptoms were the same. And it seemed to be passed to women very easily in Africa. And so they claimed it was because in Africa, it was mostly anal rape. So you can't make this shit up. So, because everyone said, why do all these African women have AIDS? Like in America, heterosexual sex is almost impossible to spread AIDS. You know, Eazy-E, none of his hoes had AIDS. I mean, I know what happened there. He wouldn't sign with the Grabber, like Dr. Dre, that precious, precious boy. There's an argument that Eazy-E was the only straight one in that whole group. And so AIDS became a reflection of self-hatred. And so the more sin you engaged in, the more you were worried you had AIDS. Guys, I fingered a girl once in high school and I thought I had AIDS. Swear to God. Because I had weird guilt. Like it was like one of the first times I ever hooked up with somebody and I thought I contracted AIDS. Yeah, and I'm a smart person. It was weird shame. And so I was like, oh my God, I have to get tested because I fingered a girl. Swear to God. And I was obsessed with AIDS. I was obsessed. I thought, because I was a virgin, I had never gotten a blowjob even. But I fingered a girl and made out with a girl. And I was like, I just contracted AIDS. And so I understand how this works. And then one time I had mono in college and they told me I had AIDS. They're like, you have to be tested now for HIV. It's crazy. Okay, so only straight one, only actual. Right. So the same exact thing is happening right now for everybody. So this Alyssa Milano character, who, by the way, she used to date my old agent at CAA, and then she fucked his best friend and roommate behind his back, who was also an agent at CAA, and then she married him. So I know a lot of people that really hope that this COVID thing sticks on this lady. And she's all about shouting your abortion, loves baby murder, loves false accusations of rape. She's a real piece of shit. And so she's living this life of anxiety and depression and horror and all that. So, and celebrities are energy vampires. They need constant attention, constant energy, or they feel like they're dying. I swear to God, it's crazy. And so now that the world is not giving her attention, she's seeking attention any way she can. I believe she believes she has COVID-19 because she's having signs of, going through menopause. She's losing her hair. She has hot flashes, hard time breathing. That's why I'm not denying that people believe they have COVID. I'm not denying that people get sick. I'm not denying that a lot of these things, are manifesting in crazy ways. I'm not denying, but I am showing you that the stats don't add up. The stats aren't there. There is no increase in death in any of these countries. Like overall death, what happens is pneumonia cases will drop like 80% in 2020, and COVID cases went up 80% from the year before. So basically all they're doing is rebranding pneumonia, rebranding influenza. And there's also other shit that's happening that I don't understand. I don't know what makes your fucking toes numb, but I know how disease works. And when everybody's symptoms are completely different, it's a lot of it definitely is mental, because disease, like chicken pox, all are the same thing. You have pox on your skin and it's chicken pox. When you have a disease like AIDS or COVID, when all the symptoms are completely different depending on the region, what you're looking at is a spell and a brand. And you're also looking at mass neuroses. You're looking at mass anxiety, mass vampiric energy, where people are like, I'm a victim. Like, that's me. And then they watch this, and now the mind virus goes in, and they think, I have that. Kind of like when I thought I had AIDS from fingering a girl once. A lot of people have a shortness of breath. They're out of shape. They have a bad diet. They watch too much porn. They have all this stuff. And so they say, I have a disease. Deaths are down in Ireland and traffic fatalities are up, probably from retards jogging on the road. Right. Exactly. You can look at the stats. When I say COVID doesn't exist, it doesn't exist the way it's described. There is no, like the increase in death in America is only suicide. Suicide is increasing tenfold in America. It's skyrocketing. But respiratory illness is not up this year. And I was told that COVID-19 is a respiratory illness. And those deaths are not up. When you're dealing with 350 million people as your group, and there is no increase this year from last year in respiratory death, you're not dealing with a real thing. Yeah, the common cold. Exactly. You're dealing with, I'm not an expert at disease. This is one thing that I have a problem with, is when you go against the mainstream narrative like NASA or something like this or 9/11 or whatever, they expect you to solve it and have all the facts ready to go. Where if you say, this doesn't make sense to me, these numbers aren't right, they go, well, then tell me, how does all viral shit work? I'm like, I don't know. I can show you, like, I don't think we went to the moon. Then tell me everything about how the world works. I'm like, no, that isn't, it's a unfair standard that if you go against an obvious lie like AIDS, it's ridiculous, guys. The symptoms in Africa are completely different. It spread completely differently, and it went around a mining company's potential lawsuit. America just disappears. There's no more AIDS, Magic Johnson. And so Arthur Ashe and all these people, it was a blood transfusion killed him and blah, blah, blah. Dude, it's bullshit. And so what we're seeing with COVID I just love that it's AIDS for heterosexuals. It's AIDS for everyone. You know, social distancing and all this stuff, now everyone's a Muslim. Remember the Muslim terrorist spell back in the early 2000s, and it lasted for well over a decade, where it was like the Muslims they were just waiting in the desert, waiting to blow up Ariana Grande for 1,300 years. And I'm not saying there isn't cultural beef and stuff that happens and there isn't authentic skirmishes and all that, but the American Muslim spell was absolutely ridiculous. And so now everyone is a terrorist. Every single person is now being treated like the Muslim is treated after 9/11. Now every single person has not everybody, but you know, it's a mass demographic thing about how the way homosexuals were in the 80s, like every sex partner they had, they would think back as to everything they did, and their guilt would make them think they had AIDS, and then they would seek a cure, AZT, given to you by Dr. Fauci himself. And that's happening now with COVID. 80% of the COVID deaths in America are from ventilators. That's why you see just huge death in New York, New Jersey, over there, and nowhere else. And guys, they're all after they put someone in a coma and put them on a ventilator. Like, I know somebody that thought they had COVID that was in the medical world, and the first thing they said is, if I go into a hospital, they're going to kill me.